Welcome to week 8. So, this week we'll continue with our advocacy, and we're going to be looking at intercultural communication competency, or ICC, to make it short and sweet and to the point. So, there's a couple things. The reading, you've got one actual reading. It is a little bit long, but it builds your understanding of intercultural communication and what intercultural communication competency is. So I do realize the chapter is a little bit long, but to be honest, it's a very quick read. So, communication in the real world, chapter 8, that is what you're reading this week. It is a PDF. You've got a video to watch, a TED Talk. It's not on the quiz, but it does help deepen your understanding of why ICC is so important. There's an intercultural competency PowerPoint, also not on the quiz. It's just kind of a little extra information because this one can be something that is a little bit deeper to embrace and understand. So I'm going to pop down here really quick. Reading check 7, same as it's been. Open note, open book, 2 attempts. The higher of the two scores is what's going to be recorded. So nothing different there. So for the ICC, before I hop into the assignment, I do want to point out there is a student example. This is from one of my students a couple years ago at a school I teach at in Tennessee. I think he did a really great job with helping understand something. And it was a topic I had not heard about until he gave his presentation. And then, of course, it was everywhere I saw it, literally everywhere I looked. So that's the thing that's nice about this is it gives you the chance to explore something about other cultures. So, for this speech, you will find a story report article from mass media or a social media outlet about stereotyping, prejudice, discrimination of a culture or people belonging to that culture. In other words, looking for an incident where a person or a group of people were not seen, heard, or respected, stereotyped, or shown prejudice. Sadly, that is very easy to find in media. I know, sadly, media thrives on negativity, but if you want to look at a more positive side to this, you could also find a story about an interesting cultural practice that promotes equality, diversity, and intercultural camaraderie. So, something that I have mentioned in the past, and I've actually had students pick this route, and they said, wow, I didn't know this about it. I am from Oklahoma, so obviously I see a lot of powwows. I saw them growing up. It is really a cool cultural event that brings people from those tribes together. So that could be a great example. I've had people cover the 4th of July and how people can use that to, bring groups of people together to celebrate pride in the United States of America. So there's lots of options. You can go either route. I am completely open to whichever you prefer. So, things you're going to need to do. You're going to need to make sure that you are explaining the situation, what the ICC was, and why it's important to understand. You also want to make sure that you're referring to some of the class discussions, so the reading from the weekly folder. And you want to make sure that you are fully citing your source. This is where source citation is really, really, really going to start to be graded because you need to be able to verbally cite your sources correctly. So putting text across the screen and saying, here's my source, that is not a verbal citation because if someone is not watching, they are not able to find that source. They need to be able to hear that source. So you should be including the website, the title of the article, or the section of the website. So let's just say it's, the CDC. What part of the CDC? That's a very large website. Bring us into where that was at. And then, of course, if there is an author, we want to make sure that we are acknowledging their hard work. So, according to website, in the article titled, whatever the title of the article is, by, insert the author's name, and then give your information, your exact bit of information that you want your audience to take away from that. So, great places that you can find news stories. Every news broadcaster has a social media platform, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all these things. You could look directly at news channels or newspapers, wire news, magazines, any of those things. Totally welcome to do that. This should be 3 minutes long. There is a 30-second leeway over under. Again, if you are over on time, I never take off points for going over. But if you are under that 2.5 minutes, it will hurt your grade. So it is important to make sure you're hitting at a minimum that 2.5 minutes. So making sure that you are presenting, not reading from notes. So you can have a visual aid if you would like it. It is not mandatory, but making sure that you are looking at the camera and maintaining as much eye contact as possible. So I do ask that you stand for this presentation. The reason for that is because it's a shorter speech and it is a more serious speech. So it's going to be more similar to a speech you would give in a normal face-to-face speech class. It just gives you that practice. So I do ask that you stand for the presentation. And then, of course, you can have notes, but just be careful that you're not staring down at them the entire time. When you are all done, if you're able to upload it to YouTube, that is fantastic. It makes grading a little bit easier. You'll post that link here. Again, if you cannot, you will simply upload your video directly to the discussion board. If you have any questions about this week's work, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'm looking forward to seeing what topics you explore.